Dana Close from Scottsdale Leadership is on. Wonderful, wonderful.
We were just talking about you
You sure were.
and Scottsdale leadership.
And our leader from Westworld Dims. We have some powerful women on here. I love it. Love it. My friend Katie, who met me out at the Schweikert rally. Appreciate you guys. We had a small but good little group of Scottsdale Women Rising ladies at the Schweikert rally, which was cool because it's gonna continue building. And Katie would attest to it's a good time where I bring my big speaker. I have a good playlist, and previously I was sort of sharing the speaker, up and down the crowd and stuff. Now I'm like, nope, we're keeping it right in the area wherever the Scottsdale Women Rising are, ladies. That's where we're keeping it. So, little perk too, being part of Scottsdale Women Rising. Oh, you know what?
We own a megaphone.
I do. You guys, I own three megaphones. I have issues with some of them sometimes, so they're charging, but who else owns three megaphones? This girl does right here. Sherry, will you pop up the picture of the happy hour? A reminder, we have happy hours once a month, and we had over 65 people register to come. About 55, 60 showed up. That's a really big number. And I'll tell you why it's such an important number. And you'll see the faces here in a second. But we are marketing these specifically to women 35 to 60, 65-ish. And that's because if you haven't listened to the first Zoom, one of the big reasons why I started this group is because I found that a lot of my friends and people in my generation were not engaged in politics and civic engagement in any way. And if you've gone to a Democrat meeting or an individual meeting, they're wonderful, they're informative. However, I found that my friends would never come back with me. And I think it's just because the majority of the people are 70 and older, and it's a quick, it's an easy excuse to be like, just not my scene. It just doesn't feel like my community. It doesn't feel like women in my chapter of life. So that is why I am really focusing on getting our 35 to 60, 65-ish ladies to come together during these events so that you can really feel like you are starting to build a community of like-minded individuals that hasn't existed in Scottsdale and much of Arizona. So thank you for sharing that fun photo. Lots of fun faces in there. I will tell you, it was a fun crowd. And Jennifer's down in Tucson. We're going to get her up here at some point for one of them. I know a lot of people ask, well, why isn't Jennifer here? Of course, she is
2 hours away.
2 hours away, 2 hours away. But it is a fun time for sure, for sure. So we will get ourselves started here. We have, oh my gosh, Jennifer and I, as soon as we started Scottsdale Women Rising, we were making a list. And in the top four of our people, we just knew Jeannie's gonna come on for sure. So our good friend, Jeanne Casteen, she is a teacher, a mother, former school board president, and the executive director for Secular AZ. In 2020, she ran for Maricopa County School Superintendent. And in 2022, she ran for state senate in Arizona's legislative district 2. She's a public education advocate like you've never met, avid camper, hiker, lover of dogs, and she joined Secular AZ in 2021 as their executive director. And she is a very close friend of both me and Jennifer's.
She has the best Substack blog ever. It's the funniest. She makes her own memes and they are amazing.
Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Yeah, the Substack really started as a form of therapy because as I was watching what was happening at school board meetings, I was like, is this real life? And it is. And I need everybody to know that this is happening in their backyard. And so that little therapy session has, kind of skyrocketed to almost 7,500 subscribers. So yeah, I do wish that local news was doing a little bit more coverage of what is happening on school boards. And I think that some folks are starting to pay attention, but we all really need to pay attention to what's happening in our own backyard.
But the
Jeannie,
idea of how you do it is that you spell it out, the horror, the tragedy of it, but you also make it funny. So I am entertained throughout,
it's true.
while I'm weeping in the corner. So Anyway.
Mhm.
Jeannie, can you tell us, for those of us on here who don't know what secular AZ is, can you give a little background of when it started and what the focus of your work is?
Sure. We're actually now celebrating our 15th anniversary. This organization was founded in 2010 by a bunch of people who really just cared about the First Amendment and the Constitution. And so I love the fact that they started as a C4 at a time when the evangelical extremists had a supermajority. The Democrats back then would call themselves the pizza party because they could literally share a pizza, with them. There were so few people
Oh,
they could share pizza. And so then 3 years later, they added the C3 because they understood that, first of all, people like to be able to deduct the donations from their taxes, and it's a heck of a lot easier to fundraise. But there was also a lot of opportunity to educate. And so my predecessor, who wasn't really the executive director, but the main lobbyist for the organization, had started some programming. And in 2021, we've been able to expand on some of that programming. So there's myself, both me and our legal director, Diane Post. And whenever we have an intern, we'll act as the lobbyists and go down to the Capitol and engage directly with our legislators. We will also do indirect or grassroots lobbying through our action alerts and inform people based on their zip codes, even about what's happening in their district, in their school district, at their city council, et cetera. We also have programming. We do a program on Fridays, kind of like this, except for it is a webinar format where we bring in folks from all over the country to talk about issues as they relate to the destruction of that wall that separates religion from government. Yes, the chat is amazing. It's fun there. Let's see. And now we're adding even more programming. We have a secular summit where we meet before the legislative session starts at the Capitol. And we then have our secular day at the Capitol, which just happened last month, where we invite all of our members to come and, meet their legislators and engage with them, get introduced. And funny story about that, this year when we were introduced on the floor of the House, the Freedom Caucus members decided to leave the floor in protest. So, a nonprofit organization that is also comprised of members who are people of faith. We were also introduced by the two Democratic ordained ministers on the floor, and the other two Republican ministers couldn't be bothered to see our members get introduced. So that was par for the course, I guess. And then now we're also adding some other events. We are starting our Logger with a Lawyer, where we will have Diane Post and Bob McWhorter speak about everything that's happening right now. We hope to live stream that as well because the venue's fairly small. So, yeah, we've got a lot of things going on, and we're entirely funded by donors. So, if you all are not members, I encourage you to become members because that is how we can continue to do the important work that we do.
I held one of your guys' fundraisers, and I am absolutely put me on the calendar that I will do it yearly because I believe so much in the separation of church and state and appreciate all the work you guys do. And I'm happy to host. So, where do we want to start?
Gosh, there's a lot going on right now, and most of it is quite enraging to me. So, apologies right now if I throw some F-bombs. Let's start, Jeannie, with what's happening down in my neck of the woods, across town from me in the Vale School District. And wow, I mean, it's so unbelievable that you're like, that's not real. Tell us about
Yeah, that is a really interesting and confusing and seemingly a long process that they've been going through to make this happen. It seems that the LDS, the Latter-day Saints Mormon Church, has entered into a partnership with the school district at Vale, and their high school, Cienega High School, is now going to be the benefactor, I guess, of this, or be the recipient of this construction project. They're basically building, I want to say it's like a 1,600 square foot space with a bathroom and 4 parking spots also on public taxpayer land. So their justification is that, well, since the LDS Church is building it, and then they're going to rent it back, like this is actually a fair deal.
For 10
And the
years.
yeah, and the reason that they want it is to build a seminary. They're saying, oh, the 15 minutes it takes each way for these young LDS students to, be released so that they can go study their religion, it just takes so long. And wouldn't it be easier if they were on the campus? But as we know, there's an awful lot of proselytizing that happens outside of those four walls when these kinds of things start to seep into our schools. Kids who don't go might be looked at funny, right? They might start to get bullied if they're choosing not to go. It may even cause further division. Right now, with the way that these evangelical extremists are, I would maybe even argue that it could cause violence given the state of our country right now and people's attitudes with their divisions and their
So
beliefs.
along those lines, I don't think that you're exaggerating there. This is the school district that during COVID, the parents came en masse to a governing board meeting and shut the meeting down. They were so violent, some of them were armed. Police were there. The board members left the building and then they had their own fake board meeting all about COVID masks. So there's definitely a tendency to kind of get things overblown. What I was reading, 3 of the 5 board members who made this decision are Mormon.
Mhm.
I have some takeaways that I find, like, let's just pretend this was all okay. That they're gifting this amount of money for the construction so that then they can lease back, because they can't technically own a building on a public campus. So they're gifting it to the school district. And then they're getting this 10-year lease. When on an article where I was commenting and arguing with some fellow, which I shouldn't do, but
Don't feed the trolls.
yeah, he said, well, it was technically, I think it was on Jeanne's on the Secular AZ Post. But if this was a Muslim group and they were putting in, like, I do not think for a second this would have been allowed, that they would have done that. That's number one. So even if we allowed religion on campus, it's definitely not equal. We all know that certain religions would not be allowed. Number two, these kids it's not after school or before school. They get to go during their elective period, during the school day. And when I ask the question, like, what happens, they can make up that class time after school for some of those students. Who's paying for that? Teachers staying after? What classes are offered? Wow. Did you ever think, like, take the religion aspect out of it? There is a class that is being held on a public school campus that not every student is allowed to attend. Isn't that automatically a Title IX violation?
I mean, you would think so, but given what's been going on for the last 10 years and the overreach of some of these religious institutions and, the government basically allowing for it to happen, they are emboldened at this point, right? I mean, they will take it all the way to the Supreme Court. That is their goal. One thing you might notice too, with a lot of these cases, including Heather Rooks and Peoria and a lot of these school board cases, they're filing them in federal courts because they want them to go all the way to SCOTUS. That's what they want.
So
And
secular AZ was key in stopping this exact kind of scenario at Paradise Valley Unified School District. Tried to do this at one of their schools, and secular AZ helped stop that a few years ago. I know that there are other campuses where this has been attempted, and in the end, the LDS moved kind of off campus. What do we think our chances here of getting this stopped?
Unfortunately, only time will tell. I know that another national organization, the Freedom from Religion Foundation, has also filed a complaint. They are a lot larger than we are, so I think it'll depend on whether they can find a plaintiff, which is becoming also increasingly more of an issue. For example, there is a school here in rural Arizona in Camp Verde that is already offering a Bible class as an elective for students to take freshman through senior We were able to stop it back in 2019, 2020 when they originally tried it. This time, they're not even answering our complaints. And we cannot find a plaintiff. So the woman who was very upset about it, when her son came home and said they're offering this class as an elective, she let us know about it. And we said, great, can you be a plaintiff? And she said, oh no, the last time I spoke at the city council meeting, they keyed my car, and my husband and I own a business. And so it would put us at risk. And we've been consulting with other like indivisible groups up there, can't find a plaintiff. So they're really hoping, I'm sure, that that will happen as well, which I think is just kind of an awful statement about where we are, because through fear tactics and intimidation, they can basically get what they want, because everyday people like you and me are too afraid of what could happen to us or our families if we do speak up.
Speaking of another small community where that's also problematic to have people speaking out because it's so tiny and insular, the Canyon School District in Black Canyon City. And they're
Oh, yeah, that one even got some national attention as well. Um, Yeah, Canyon School, spelled in the Spanish way, Canyon, is a K-8 school in Black Canyon City. Very small school population. I want to say there were like last count like 135 kids or something like that there. Most of those kids end up going to Deer Valley School or Great Hearts Academy and Anthem. And many of them go out of district because the school is so wildly underfunded. And to make matters worse, the superintendent entered into a really sweet deal with this, Bible church that is extraordinarily anti-LGBTQ. They decided to rent out their multipurpose room for $5 a day. The fair they had been charging other groups 12.50 an hour, which is still wildly underpriced, and if you wanted the sound set, you'd need a little bit, you have to pay a little bit more, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, about $5 every time they rented it. And this is a church that has their Sunday sermons, they have their Wednesday Bible studies, they have like Tuesday youth group. So
and
all
it's
told,
less than like the neighboring districts charge about half of what it would cost you to rent a similar facility at Scottsdale Unified School District, just to give you guys an idea. But at half that rate for the neighboring school district, the amount of time that this church is renting this facility would come out to $5,206 a year. This church, which is the superintendent's, or is she the board member's husband, is the pastor of, and she's like their youth leader. So they have a financial stake in the place. They get a salary for what they do. They're renting out the building for $490 total a year.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And they justify it by saying, well, we clean
Yeah.
and we take care of the bathrooms and everything. And I mean, it's so obvious. And you're right. It's the board president. She is married to this pastor. And again, and the pastor and his wife also like coach the girls volleyball team as well. So they will even, one of the people who brought this to our attention told me that they will sit at like whatever the local watering hole is up there on Fridays and Saturdays with their iced tea, just to watch and see if any of the parishioners come in and have a drink, because they're also like a teetotaling church that try to control absolutely everything that the people there do.
The part that really got me was that the church receives mail at the school. That's their only address. Like they don't even have like a post office box. That they literally list the school's address as their address.
Well,
So
and I would imagine that they probably have keys too, which is again a terrible thing. I'm a former school board president, and I should never have a master key to the buildings because I should not be able to go in and, intimidate. I would never do that, but there are a lot of board members who would definitely use their power. And if they had a key, who knows what kind of information they would have access to? Or some of these crazy anti-LGBTQ people, well, what if they see a picture, of a same-sex couple on somebody's desk who works in HR? Are they going to start targeting them?
it feels to me like in the outsider, like we live in a lawless state. Like we know that these things shouldn't be legal. This is definitely unethical. what they're charging. We know that that's a law that you have to rent for fair market value, whatever. Of course, Black Canyon City, like that could be argued. But my point is that how can they still be doing these things?
Again, if we don't have a plaintiff who is willing to, file a lawsuit, we can't really do it on our own because we would have to prove what's called organizational standing. And we might be able to do that. As an organization, we have the standing to be able, we have a vested interest in this, right? But then what happens to all of our donors? During discovery, all of that information becomes public knowledge. And again, fear and intimidation, violence even, we do not want to put our donors and our supporters under in that kind of danger, because these people, if they don't get their way, well, they storm the Capitol.
Yeah.
Right?
Can you
Literally.
tell a little bit about, you mentioned Peoria. Can you inform us all about what's happening right here next to us in Peoria?
Peoria needs your help, Scottsdale. I don't even know what to do anymore. It is
For the
well,
record, Jeannie either goes to or listens on to how many school board meetings in the last year, would you say? Like
oh gosh.
hundreds across the
Oh,
state?
I would say probably around 100 or so.
That was
Community
at least our gift to her of like, girlfriend, we got you. We're handling Scottsdale. We are not going to be a problem for you. You go.
We did our own blog. Emmy Cardella did it.
No, I am so grateful for you. You guys really just, it was like a well-oiled machine. You understand the voters of Scottsdale. I can't say the same for Peoria right now, as far as, they had a full-on, I would say, a MAGA takeover, right? Heather Rooks was already on the board. And then a gentleman named Jeff Tovey, who has a background in law enforcement, and Anthony Kern's sister, Janelle Bowles, who I affectionately refer to as Sister Fratelli. They are on the board, and it has been absolute chaos since they reorganized their board. There's another board
But
member.
let's just back up for 1 second.
Yeah.
For those that don't know who Anthony Kearns is, he was in our Arizona state legislature. He literally got like on the ground speaking in tongues, kind of religious thing one day. He was at the Capitol on January 6th. Literally, he was there. He was part of the crowd. He's cuckoo nuts, and his sister is on the board of Peoria.
And I've heard she might be cuckoo. Is that true?
Oh, yeah. I mean, I don't know. It's tough. They're neck and neck. But there was another woman, Becky Proudfit, who was appointed by the former county superintendent, Steve Watson, who is a member of the LDS community as well. She claims to be moderate, but she sat behind Trump at a rally on the West Side. So I'm sorry, if you're in a room with those people, you're a cult member, because I know plenty of Republicans who, would never even consider voting for Trump, but they may vote for another more moderate Republican. So anyway,
Sure.
I digress.
So Heather gets on the board and she starts the meeting with prayer, or before she makes her board statement with prayer, she just interjects prayer throughout.
During her public comment is when she decided to start reading scripture. At the time, it was both her and another board member who's no longer there, Rebecca Hill. They both chose to read scripture. Rebecca Hill resigned before Heather Rooks then decided to sue the district. What happened was she was praying. We sent a complaint. FFRF sent a complaint. She filed a lawsuit against the district because the district was like, hey, we're getting these complaints. Could you knock it off? And the judge said, basically, you have no standing here. Like, you could have sued these other groups that told you to stop doing that, but to sue the district makes absolutely no sense. And he basically said, you lose. She said she was going to appeal the case, decided not to appeal the case because I think that she understands. That was also, by the way, one of the most conservative judges in Arizona who handed down that decision. So this is not like, but I really thought she was going to keep going all the way to SCOTUS, but she would be looking at the Ninth Circuit, and that probably wouldn't work out very well for her. But again, the goal is to take it all the way to the Supreme Court. And that's why you're seeing more and more of these kinds of cases go to the Supreme Court because that's their plan.
And because she was on the board when she sued her own school district as a board member, didn't the school district have to pay her legal fees? Didn't
Oh,
this end
yeah.
up costing the school district in total, like for themselves and to pay her share, $300,000?
Around there, yeah. So before she even got on the board, she and her running mate at the time, back in 2022, they cost the district about $300,000 in public records requests. That's another strategy that these folks do. I'm sure you're
Uh-huh.
familiar with it in Scottsdale.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So before she even got on the board, 300,000. Then in a vote that astounded everybody, they turned down their own grant money for social workers because again, there's this conspiracy theory that all of our schools are gender reassignment clinics, and so they don't make good decisions because they believe in conspiracy theories.
Let's clarify that. This same person, there was a federal grant, so it wasn't going to cost the school district anything, and it was providing some extra school counselors for their schools.
Mhm.
And they just said, nope, we don't want the free personnel.
Yeah. The justification from the extremists was this false claim of they're transing our kids. And then the reasoning from the more moderate board member was that it was because it was a grant, it wasn't a sustainable solution. It's so dumb, right? And so she got pushback because of this terrible decision. And so then by that time it was too late. They had already let the money go and missed the deadline. So they had to dip into their rainy day funds. This is a district, by the way, too, that does not have, or their bond and override are about to run out. They really struggle. Their schools, especially in the north part of the district, are just bursting at the seams. But the people there have been told by the extremists that they should never approve any increases. And so they show up at board meetings, complain about how crowded the schools are, and then every November vote against their children getting a bigger school. It makes no
This
sense.
leads us into the bill that we're looking at, where they're trying to replace school social workers with chaplains.
But yeah, so I mean, problem solved. You don't have to take the federal grant with the counselors because you can just put a random religious leader at your school. And I'm waiting to see like where's the evidence that they've had any kind of training on working with adolescents or
And are background checks required? I'd like to know that. I mean,
I would imagine so, just because like even as a volunteer parent, I had to pay for my own background check because if you were left alone with a kid, like you're doing sight words or something, you had to have a background.
right.
Yeah, it is it was a bad bill to begin with. And then the Gress amendment made it even worse. So Gress may be some of your attendees representative if you are in LD4. Yeah. So they get really panicked because what happens is there is a pretty strong satanic temple here, mostly in Tucson. And anytime that there is any kind of, bill that, violates the Establishment Clause, I'll tell you what, those folks show up. And a lot of them are trained chaplains. So, and it's on purpose, of course. And so some of them showed up to testify when that bill was, oh gosh, I think it originated in the House, I'm pretty sure. And said, I can't wait.
Started in the Senate. It was initially sponsored by Wendy Rogers.
Oh, that's right. It was Wendy Rogers. Yeah, you're right.
Then it went to the House, then Matt added on his amendment,
That's right.
which you're explaining.
So yeah, then, so they showed up and said, hey, this is great. I am already an ordained chaplain for the Satanic Temple. I can't wait. I stand in support of this bill. So they added an amendment that would
obviously they're being sarcastic. They're trying to prove the point of
yeah, exactly. Yeah. So
no, there's not actually a group of satanic worshipers that are trying to actually get into our schools. It is to prove the point of
just like we were talking about in the Vail School District. They wouldn't let just any religious group go in there and have a classroom. That's what the Satanic Temple is trying to show. Like
exactly.
You think it's just about religion and we'd let anybody do it, but I'm sorry, I keep interrupting you as you explain what Matt does.
But it's important to know. It's important to know that is a large percentage of that group is actually activists. Go ahead.
Oh yeah, totally. Yeah. They've got some attorneys in their group too. So it gets even more fun when the attorneys come up because they really know what they're talking about and they can stand in those hearings. That's not always easy to stand when they start asking you questions and trying to like gotcha. But so anyway, yeah, Gress added an amendment that would essentially make it so that only Christian chaplains. I mean, your religion has to be over a certain amount of years old, and it was somehow, it's somehow just out of reach of the Satanic Temple. You have to have so many like members in your congregation, so that also means that more like progressive churches wouldn't be able to
New
probably
Thought
send
churches,
folks
Unitarian.
there.
Got
There
it.
has to be a
Exactly.
belief in a supernatural being.
So to keep folks like, because there are humanist chaplains as well. The National or the American Humanist Association has an ordained, so anybody, if you're in the military, if you're in a hospital, you may not want to have, a religious person reading your last rites or soothing you or while you're sick or whatever, but they want to make it so that it's an opportunity to indoctrinate again. And it's so funny because they always say that we are the ones that are indoctrinating the kids, but these kinds of bills are clearly designed specifically to indoctrinate children into these adults' way of thinking.
So it reminded me of, I think it was Kansas. I bet you Ian is going to know who's on here watching. Maybe it was a Ten Commandments thing or prayer in classroom. And this guy did something very clever and he started a religion, the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster, which
I
is, I
remember that.
highly recommend you go onto their website because it is brilliant. But it's the pastafarians. They have like, pasta stuff and they wear hats and people get married and like it's a whole thing. Technically, that's been around for 3 decades now. I mean, I wonder if we could become chaplains in the Church of the Flying Spaghetti Monster and then petition to go into the schools as a counselor.
Yeah, it's a weird time to be alive, and it's also like the Ten Commandments for children, really? Like, is this what we want? But then they get mad about, social emotional learning and like teaching the soft skills of like being a decent human. But to say, do not commit adultery to like a kindergartner seems weird to me. I don't know. I may be old
It's
fashioned.
important for everybody to understand. Uh, if we had not elected Katie Hobbs, Anthony Kern's bill last year that started in the Senate, allowing the Ten Commandments in school, that passed the Senate and the House, y'all. The only reason why we do not have the Ten Commandments posted in y'all's children's classrooms is
Yeah.
because Katie Hobbs vetoed it.
Yeah,
Um,
that's the reason why. I mean, she's our backstop right now. Thank goodness. And it still doesn't mean that she can block everything because another really important thing that we need to do, and we do this behind the scenes, usually in coalitions with other organizations, we have to have meetings with these legislators, even on the Democratic side, because they might not understand fully what the bill is attempting to do. Like you may have seen a lot of these get porn out of kids' hands kinds of bills. And really what those are about is about keeping kids from learning comprehensive sex education. It's also about erasing LGBTQ community, like because with their broad definition of what is pornography, same-sex couples could be considered pornography. And so when we started seeing these bills a few years ago, you don't want to be accused of, oh, this is the guy that wants porn in the hands of kids, right? And that's not, so we would have to tell folks like, hey, I want to walk you down the path of how this could actually work out if it passes. And we need to have that kind of solidarity too. And I'm not suggesting that people be automatons, but we need a solidarity within the Democratic Party so that when she sees a bill that has zero support from her own party, then it's easier for her to justify vetoing it than if she sees 5 or 10. You might remember the tamale bill, right? That was a bipartisan bill. So those kinds of things become tricky. and we need to do, educating on the in the background.
I'll just say that Scottsdale schools do not have any form of sex education and haven't for many years now, since COVID, because there was bills that went through that then made our curriculum not acceptable any longer, and there was just so much heat on the district. And we have some MAGA school board members, and so they knew they weren't going to be able to pass a curriculum, and so they just recently have passed a curriculum. And I will say my husband sat on the board of the curriculum committee, and our board member, Amy Carney, did her damnedest to get my husband literally in a school board meeting saying that he needed to be removed from the committee. As a physician, he's the director of trauma surgery. As a physician, he wanted to have him removed because he has a history of being pro-choice. I have a feeling it might also be because he's married to me, but that didn't happen. So then she demanded that she be a part of the committee and sit at every single meeting. She couldn't vote during the curriculum meetings, but she sat at all the board meetings. It was ridiculous. And I will say, it's one thing to fuck with you, but don't fuck with my husband.
I want to point out that it's not just religious issues that people have turned to secular AZ for. I know that during COVID, when Carrie Lake came to one of our campuses, stood on campus in front of a building before a board meeting, she basically had a campaign rally on our school grounds with the Mama Bears. And Diane Post, your attorney there with Secular AZ, is the one that sent a cease and desist letter to say, don't do that again. Like,
yes,
that is not okay. And that was it's not that we didn't think our district was going to be able to say you need to leave, but they didn't say that day. I'm not sure that they were aware of what was going on outside, but having that backing of Secular AZ, that cease and desist, gives us the strength, gives the districts the strength to say, you're not allowed to do this. They shouldn't need it, but it's still helpful. So
yeah, there was a lot of that happening in 2024. Churches also cannot endorse candidates. Now, of course, it happens all the time, because our IRS is really overwhelmed and it's very difficult to get an agent who actually cares about that issue, and you'd have to sit on the phone for a very long time. But we will file complaints. If we see a Carrie Lake sign at a church, you can't do that. Now, if they want to have a say no on Prop 139, they can do that. They can take a side.
She shows up to one of the largest churches here in Scottsdale around election time. She makes her appearance with her big bus shuttle with her face all over it. And she apparently makes her rounds on Sundays to all the locations with her bus parked in prime real estate.
We know that two of our board members that are currently on the Scottsdale Unified School District, Amy Carney and Corinne Warner. Warner's also in. I think she pronounces it Karen, whatever. I don't care what her name is. Anyway, not that you'd recognize her from her current picture that she just got at the state legislature.
Yeah, her face is ever changing.
Just being mean.
Wait, is it like your mayor over there in Scottsdale?
Oh yeah, like just like the mayor, she got Borowski'd. It is a face filter, let me tell you. Anyway, not that I care what people look like, but just like be honest about it. Like that's who you are, people. They're members of a large evangelical congregation here in Scottsdale. And I mean, I don't go, I don't know anybody that goes. I absolutely do not believe that they were never mentioned while they were campaigning. You just know they were. So
for sure.
At one point they actually would have coffee with Carney on site, but I am aware that was they didn't get permission in advance. And so I called that church and made sure that is not going to happen again. And they assured me that would not be happening again on their campus. Coffee with Carney or coffee with whoever.
Bernadette commented, it's called the Mar-a-Lago face. Yeah.
Oh, is that it? So I was just reading Ian put in the chat that the fastest growing group of members for Secular AZ are Christians.
Well, I mean, religious people in general, people who actually attend church, people who, consider themselves Christians are joining our organization. Many of them, reached out because of other issues like school board stuff, and then realized like, oh,
Oh, did you guys lose sound?
fastest growing demographics. And people would call me about school board stuff. And then it kind of ended up in some cases, like counseling sessions almost, because so many people these past 10 years or so who really are faithful, who love going to church, the fellowship, the food, the whatever, the sermons, have found themselves feeling like adrift, right? Their
Yeah.
churches have become increasingly political, and these people don't really care for that. Some of them, would lament with me like how upsetting it was to lose their congregation and that fellowship. And so they've now started to find it with our organization, which I love, and
Mhm.
again, we're probably majority non-believers, but we also did a survey back in 2024 that I want to roll out again, actually, because everything's changing so rapidly. We just have to refine it a little bit. But I thought I was being so inclusive with this Google form that I created, where okay, Christian, Jewish, all these and I knew our members would not like to be pigeonholed like that. So then everybody added like an additional 24 categories that fit their spiritual profile,
Sure.
so yeah.
So Dono asked in the chat what the Scottsdale Women Rising group can be doing to stop this GRES bill. Is there anything at this point we can be of any help?
I'm not sure where that bill is in the process, but I think that we've got unity on the Democratic side. So this is probably going to be getting vetoed. However, you can always register on RTS, and if you're not, our organization can do that. If you want to send an email to info@secularaz.org requesting that. I try to go down once a week to get people into RES or RTS because, of course, even though we have the technology for people to sign up right from the comfort of their own home, they make it as ageist and ableist as they possibly can to inconvenience everybody. So good groups like us, CEBV, etc., will do that for you.
Can
So
we can we real quick? I think there's a good amount of people that are going to be listening that don't know what RTS is. So do you want to give the 5 minute or the 1 minute if you don't mind?
Sure.
Or Ian?
I can do it.
Go for it.
RTS is request to speak. It's a system that is available at the legislature, so that you can log in, search for the bills that you're interested in. Oftentimes, I use Diane Post's guide from National Organization of Women, as well as the CEBV weekly guide. So I will then, so you have to register at the Capitol at these kiosks. I can do that for you. But what's
Pretty
great
common
about
that
it,
people give, you can sign up and then someone like yourself or myself, I've also registered people, you just have to physically do it. It's not that you're getting all this secret
and
information, but you have to physically go down there to put it in just to make it hard for people.
exactly.
But again, it's called request to speak, but you're not actually publicly speaking. It's just
No.
request to have an opinion on something. It's what they should call it. Request to have an opinion.
Well, and
Unless you can
as
give up
it provides
and down.
also a public record. It's really important because it provides a public record of where, who was in support of these bills, how many people were in support of these bills, and how the legislature voted. I believe for this chaplain bill, I want to say that there were like 490 people or something crazy like that of people that were opposed to the chaplain bill with and without the amendment, opposed. And then there were 11 people for it. So, of course, it passed on party lines. Diane Post pointed that out in the letter that she fired off to everybody in that committee after she attended. But yeah, so it's really important. You can just say, I approve of this bill, I don't approve of it, or even I'm indifferent towards it, I'm neutral, and then it will say, would you like to speak? Yes, no, or if necessary. So like these ladies said, you do not have to speak because I know that not everybody likes getting up in front of a committee, especially if Jay Kaufman is the chair of that committee. You probably don't want to go down there, but you can at
Yeah.
least let him know how you feel about stuff.
I know that this is sort of old news, but I want to share something. Sure, if you could pop up the visuals here with our own school board member, Corinne Werner, who has deseated our state senator, Christine Marsh, who was like the advocate of all advocates for public education. She now has deseated her. To our knowledge, Werner has no college degree, was life coach as a professional, but now sits on our education committee, is the chair of our education committee. And last year she was out there with Tom Horn, the only school board member who spoke at the press conference with Tom Horn to really push PragerU in our schools. PragerU is not
That's
even,
not the press conference, y'all. That's the party.
that's the party. Yeah.
Yeah.
It was a press conference. Wait, it went away. That's okay. But PragerU curriculum is insane. So with all this conversation of indoctrination and it is insane what this PragerU curriculum is and what they're wanting to teach our kids. And so that's okay, Sherry, no big deal. But I'm going to encourage everybody on here to please Google PragerU. As you can see, these are actual PragerU chapter graphics. From Make Men Masculine Again, Why Trump Won. That was, of course, that was when they believed he won the election that was stolen, in their opinion. Sex Matters, gender in this point, but you can see what they're, look at that graphic of what they think women are thinking about. Chocolate and shoes.
Quote about like there was something about like Christopher Columbus coming over and the people were grateful to be basically enslaved.
Oh,
I
it's
think
better to be a slave than to die, isn't it?
Yeah, it was there were some real gems in the PragerU curriculum. To my knowledge, no, I don't have any kids in the school district anymore. They've graduated. I don't know that there's any evidence of a single teacher in SUSD teaching this material, even though they're allowed to. Do you know, Jeannie, have you all heard if PragerU is being used in any of the schools?
Oh, I have a feeling it'll be coming soon to Peoria, because the board president, Heather Rooks, has already stated that she is in support of it. I'm worried that I'm saying this out loud right now because she's not that smart. She probably forgot about it, and if she's getting a hold of this at all, then she's going to be like, "Oh, that's right, I was going to do that thing." But what they are really trying to do over there too is bring in this curriculum called LifeWise. LifeWise is a Christian curriculum, and the other board member, one of the other board members, Janelle Bowles, Anthony Kern's sister, has already said that she wants to bring LifeWise academies to the school. And I think we're going to even be interviewing somebody from the organization that is trying to stop LifeWise from infiltrating our schools. I think that might be coming up either this month or next. So that'll be a good discussion to figure out what we can do. And I could, if you all like, I can share the, what do you call it? The spreadsheet that has the list of schools that already are getting, and here's the crazy thing about that LifeWise Academy. You don't have to live in the state. If you want to sign a petition to bring them into your schools, you could live in Alaska. You could live in Thailand. It doesn't matter. They have it down to a system. It's a huge grift. So let me just throw that in the chat here real quick if you'd like to
I'm
access it and
sorry.
see.
Let's back this what the fuck truck up. All right. So people who make some money selling this curriculum, they can have people from anywhere else, their little cohort of whatever Russian bots, vote to put it in my kid's school. My board can't say no.
Well, they've just designed, from what I understand about this, is that they've just designed their toolkit so well that again, these are all AstroTurf organizations. These are not grassroots organizations at
I
all.
know.
So
make money.
They get this toolkit, somebody helps them figure out like, okay, how do we get around this? Okay, if we have this many petition signatures. And so, yeah, I don't even really fully understand it myself, which is again why I'm really looking forward to talking to those folks, because it's such a convoluted grift, and they've got experts who are legal experts that can help them get around whatever laws exist.
Definitely send us the link for that so we can put it in the newsletter so we can all do a deep dive in that cuckoo banana pants crazy train.
Yeah.
That is something else.
We only have a few more minutes and I do want to get to our action steps. Is there anything else we want to chat real quick about for the next 5 minutes?
I mean, really,
Any
what I
last
want to,
questions? If anybody wants to put a question in the chat, please, let's do that.
Can I add an action step because it sort of flowed out of this conversation? Regardless of where you are, if you live in a school district, whether you have kids in the school district or not, you are eligible to join committees. So that doesn't mean you're going to get picked, but they have curriculum committees, they have sex ed committees, they have committees where they choose what books you're allowed to teach in, sophomore English. It is really, really important that people make sure that they're looking for committees that are available in their area so that we can populate them with sanity and people that aren't going to automatically ban a book because it was written by a Black person, because that unfortunately is basically what happens.
Oh, yeah.
So
The list of Warner and Carney books that they request to have pulled, you wouldn't be surprised what's on there.
Ghost Boys was pulled from our middle schools, and it's pretty much the same thing as The Outsiders.
Which is mandatory
Still
reading
allowed
for
to
most
talk.
seventh graders.
Yeah. The bunch of white boys who are living in poverty, one of whom is shot and killed by a cop. Ghost Boys, pretty much the same thing, just a different color. One of them is banned and one of them is required reading. So I'm not sure that even people in Scottsdale are aware that that has happened. And so it's really important that we make sure that we're on those committees and we're making our voices known, just like at Request to Speak down at the Capitol. So,
and a quick plug to also Scottsdale Parent Council, which is an organization that's wonderful that works to bring light to a lot of things that are happening across the district. And they meet with Menzel on a monthly basis, who comes to their meetings. If you want to get more engaged beyond a PTO level, a little bit more on a broader district level, that's a great organization. So we'll make sure you follow us on social media. If you don't, I'm going to track you down. I'm going to keep bugging you and support us on social media. I will make sure that I put anything that we mention in the meetings. I'll make sure in the next day or two that we get a post about that organization or that effort up on our social media pages.
Very cool people through the Scottsdale Parent Council. My first year serving on the board there, I served with Mary Ann McCallan, who is now one of the only two sane people on our Scottsdale City Council. So, you do meet up and comers and very, very cool people. The first time I met Shay, she was giving a presentation on school lunches at Scottsdale Parent Council. So,
okay. We have someone on here, Bernadette Green, Placentia, and she is going to be running against Abe Hamaday in CD8 and needing signatures. Look at the chat real quick and click over there. She's working with Matt Grodsky. We didn't even know this. Matt's our buddy. So click at that chat real quick. And if you're in that CD8 area, I want to just stop for a moment and speak real quick. Again, we're still having our Schweikert rallies. Please show up on Mondays, 9 o'clock to 10 o'clock. As it gets warm, we're going to keep scooting at 8:30, 8 o'clock. So, just look at your calendar and figure out if you can start hopping in before you head to work. Would love to have you there. It's getting good attention and it's continued to build in size. So show up for there. I also want to give a shout out. Dana, Sherry, can you spotlight Dana for just one moment, if you're up for it, Dana, to talk to us a little bit about Scottsdale leadership and what we are doing here in Scottsdale Women Rising is building leaders. And so that is why we so believe in and love Scottsdale leadership. So would you tell us a little bit about what they are and why it's important that we had you on today?
Oh, well, thank you for having me. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we are a Scottsdale-based leadership program. We are in class 39 now, currently accepting applications for class 40. We try very hard to keep things in a nonpartisan slant, but the leadership on all sides is important to hear those points of view. We have everything from police day, fire day, education day, city government day. We try and get people through so that they become participants in our civic discussions. We highly encourage people. I see Emily there, who has gone on to be on many boards and commissions, and so we are sort of a a groundwork of trying to get people to be participating in civil discourse. And we have an upcoming applicants reception on April 30th, if anyone's interested in learning more about our program.
The last of
And
the season, correct?
sorry,
It's the last of the season.
yes, it is. You
So
don't have
this is
to-
your last chance to, well, if you want to go to an orientation, not that you have to.
Correct. It's just really more of a question and answer, more of about our program. And then we are still taking applications until May 14th, if anyone is interested in it. One of the neat things about our program is that at the midway through our program in about December, you're given an assignment for a project, a community service project. And we've done some pretty amazing things in our community with that too. So take the leadership lessons learned and put it into small groups to make real actionable change in our city from some very, very worthy nonprofits. So,
And I will just say, I meet so many people and I'm like, man, you are like a change maker. You are my kind of people. And sure enough, I will say 8 times out of 10, they have been through your program. So I'm a big, big supporter. I have not been through it. I am actually going to be attending the orientation. So hope that some of you will join me. We will include the link. We will include information in our social media so you guys can register. And if they can't make the orientation, when is the deadline to apply for it?
the deadline to apply is May 14th, and you do not need to attend a reception in order to apply for the program. If anybody has any questions, Shay, in your newsletter, if you want to put any contact information, or I can put my email in the chat. It's dana@scottsdaleleadership.org. If anybody has any questions, you do not need to attend a reception in order to apply if you're interested. But if you have any more questions, certainly reach out to me and I will help.
Some of our biggest SUSD advocates that have helped us over the years with school board races, our overrides, and everything else have come out of this program. You know, Raul Zubia and Gary Shapiro. I mean, like, if they're kind of a mover and shaker in Scottsdale, as Shay said, chances are they were a member of Scottsdale leadership.
Yeah.
So,
Marianne McCallum.
Absolutely.
Marianne McCallan. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. So thank you so much, Dan. I appreciate it.
Thanks,
Jeannie, we have 2 minutes left. What else do we need to know? Any action steps that you want us to be taking?
Well, I think that everybody, this is my advice I give everybody. You need to focus on what's happening in your own backyard, whether it is your local school board or your city council. I hear that you all have a board that wants to reject money because of a roundabout, which is absolutely ridiculous. And that
$31
they've
million we just voted down.
They
and
did it. They
Yeah.
voted.
Oh, wow.
Happened
Like,
last night.
okay, I didn't realize, and that's awful. And so that's the kind of stuff that keeps me
Jeannie,
up at night.
roundabouts are woke, and
I know.
you become gay if you drive through one. I mean, these are
I've heard
facts.
this.
These
Yeah.
are facts.
For the record,
I've
the
heard this.
roundabout itself did not cost $31 million, the entire project, but it hinged on this roundabout, which takes an intersection from which was an F rating, would take it up to, I can't remember if it was an A or B, and they rejected it because they're woke. 31. Yes. Thank you, Emily.
Yeah.
Emily
So, you know,
follows
we
those
need to get involved. We need to show up to those meetings. If you're in a solid school district, find one that's not. Like Peoria needs all the help it can get right now. Even if you just
TV.
sit and, you know, look at the people and nod and smile at them. It's exhausting work to be on a board when you're in the minority. Obviously, I would ask all of you to support the work that we do at Secular AZ. For those of you who don't know, our legal director, Diane Post, who's already retired and doing all this pro bono work for us and other organizations, is going to fully step down from being the legal director. She'll still be on the committee, but she doesn't want that responsibility anymore. I don't blame her. So we are fundraising for a new legal director. And we are kicking it off with on May 7th, we're having Logger with a Lawyer. I see that Ian already posted that in here. So, but membership, that is what keeps us going. And we are a small but mighty organization. We don't have a brick and mortar. It is just us working from our little houses. So we need all the help we can get, and we rely on donors and members to support us. But
will-
I
we will
appreciate
support
this
you.
experience so much. It was really fun today. And I love the work that you all are doing and how you all are, just trying to bring in more people because we need as many people as we can get.
We do. We absolutely do. We thank you for all your hard work. We just love you and adore you. And that's a wrap for today, guys. Thank you so much. If you are not on you're all on our newsletter. So
There was somebody on the chat that wasn't receiving the newsletter, so we need to make sure that anybody that's registering, we've updated the newsletter email.
absolutely. And also check your spam. Make sure it didn't go, get hidden away. But we do include our city council meetings and our school board meetings in the calendar there. So honestly, just look at it and for God's sakes, if you guys just picked once a quarter to go to one of these, if everyone picked once a quarter to go to one of these, it could make a huge, not could, it would make a huge impact.
Find a girlfriend and go for a drink after because you'll want
That's
to.
what we do.
That's what we do.
That's what me and Rebecca and Amy, we're there every time for school board and go and get cocktails afterwards. So maybe we start an SWR cocktail party after every single school board meeting or before. So thanks, you guys. You have a wonderful, wonderful day. I appreciate you. One last thing. I'm about to jump off this call and jump on another Zoom with Red, Wine, and Blue. I'm sure many of you guys know what that organization is. And they want to talk to us about getting featured, being their featured group for their Trouble Nation groups. So way to go for us and the growth that we are having here. And please continue to spread the word. And that's it for today. Thanks so much. Talk to you later.
Thanks, folks.
Bye, you guys.